Ollie started to head downtown as soon as he saw the news of the giant friendly clock doll that appeared downtown. It didn't seem to be making a menace of itself, although it's of course disruptive to have this giant clock doll thing, in the middle of a busy street in a major city. But it seemed peaceful. It seemed cheerful. I was looking at the news reports and people's videos and photos on the taxi ride down, the bus ride down, rather. It seemed to be about 8 stories high, with a big clock for a body, for lack of a better word. And that clock part was about 6 stories in diameter. And it had big, chunky, baby doll leg type legs, long, spindly arms, and on the face of the clock was a face with big, friendly eyes and a great big smile. The center of the hands was right where the nose would be, so it kind of looked like the hands were a cat's whiskers or something. And it had a little bell with a little bar between them, and a little hammer between them, like an old-timey alarm clock. And I was wandering around, and if anything, it seemed to be avoiding stepping on any people or cars, which is unusual behavior for a giant monster. They're normally pretty destructive. And while I was about halfway down, he got a call that he's expecting. He figured either the mayor or the chief of police would call him up. And it was the mayor. He said, "Ollie, something strange going on downtown." He said, "I know, Mr. Mayor. I'm on my way down now." "Oh, great. We have a little mobile operations center right there at where the Tir na Nog used to be, at the Inner Harbor." "All right, I'll meet you there. Thanks. Right now, the monster is over by the aquarium." "Okay." Well, I got there. It's a pretty short ride. And when Ollie arrived, the clock thing was on the main pier of the aquarium, kind of out by the submarine. It was kind of waving back and forth a little bit and looking out toward the Maryland Science Center across the harbor. Mayor saw Ollie as he came in. Excuse me. Ah, there you are. Great. So what do you think? What do we got going on here? I said, "Well, it looks kind of like a weird giant robot, but it moves a lot more fluidly than a normal robot, so there's something advanced going on. But I think we can count our lucky stars. It seems to be friendly. What have you guys tried?" "Well, we tried talking to it. The bullhorn. That didn't do anything. Had some police go up and try and get close to it, and it didn't seem to like that. It kept smiling, but it made some, shuffling motions like it was going to try and kick him. So we pulled him back. We're not quite sure what to think. It kind of looks at the helicopters, but we haven't gotten too close to the helicopters because it's hard to tell how long those arms are. If it does turn aggressive, I don't want it to swat down a helicopter. That could be, bad scene," Ollie said. All right. Still out by the aquarium. Do we have a little boat ready? Yeah, actually we do. Yeah, it's right out there. See the little blue and white boat there? Police boat's there, ready, ready. Want a megaphone? Said I'll take a megaphone. So I got on the police boat, asked the driver to take him over around over by the aquarium, and the clock thing was still over there, although it was sort of shuffling its way back down the pier toward land. I got up on top. There's a little canopy thing. I got up on top, and the canopy was blue, so Ollie turned yellow, so he'd be easy to see. I got up the bullhorn, and he said, "Excuse me, giant clock thing." And the clock stopped and turned in his direction. Then Ollie noticed that the eyes moved, but only a little bit. They weren't full-on eyes, but they could kind of shift left and right, up and down. But it was looking at him. He was pretty sure of that. "What are your intentions?" Said he's pretty worried you might do something bad. And when Ollie said that, something strange happened, because the eyes, which had been white circles with black circles in it, the black circles seemed to get darker, and then they started to glow. And then laser beams. Ollie jumped off of the canopy into the water, and laser beams poked a hole right through the canopy. Luckily, they missed the boat. The officer said, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, you go, get out of here, get to safety. I'm fine." So the officer sped off with the speedboat. And the clock thing tried to zap it a few more times. I thought, man, whatever I did, I made it mad. Then the clock thing turned to Federal Hill and zapped it with its lasers a couple of times. Big char marks across the grass. But it didn't seem to have spotted where Ollie went. So he swam as quickly as he could. Came up around underneath and then between the submarine and the pier. He thought, it's going to be one of these things where I have to climb in and find a hatch and stuff again. So he climbed quickly and quietly. He got up on the leg, or the foot rather, of the monster, or the whatever it was. Ollie was kind of guessing robot with the laser eyes, but no way to do it but to find out. He didn't see a hatch. Often there's a hatch at the bottom. It's easiest to climb in there, but Ollie couldn't see any hatches there. And quite to his surprise, the monster reacted to Ollie getting onto its leg. It seemed to be able to feel it. It was a weird material. He'd been expecting hard metal or plastic, but it was papery and fleshy all at the same time. I tried to shake Ollie off, but he had a good grip. And I thought, well, it's still probably some weird monster. If the port's not at the top or at the bottom, then the port's probably at the top. He climbed around to the backside and climbed up. It was kind of an easy material to climb because it had some give, but he could get some purchase with the suction cups. But the monster didn't seem to like it. That's when Ollie noticed the arms, and the arms were trying to reach back and swat at him. But the monster was swatting blind. It couldn't tell exactly where Ollie was. He moved quickly and got up to the very top. There, where the hammer part went down into the clock, there was a gap. I took a deep breath and dove for it. A person wouldn't have been able to get through the hole. Too weird a shape, too small. But Ollie's an octopus. He got in, and he soon found himself inside the mechanism of this thing. There were pulleys and levers and ropes. But once Ollie got past there, quite to his surprise, the entire inside was empty. Well, that's weird, Ollie thought. You could see where the eyes were, and they were glowing from this side, but there wasn't anything behind them. There's no control mechanisms. There's no nothing. It seemed like the only mechanical part was the hammer and the bells, and everything else was... Well, he brought his flashlight. Hadn't been able to get it through the little hole, so I didn't have it really now, and it was dark in there. Well, I climbed down to the inside of it, and when we got off of the hammer mechanism and onto, we'll call it the flesh of the thing, it reacted. The whole thing shuddered. Like it didn't like it. Sort of shaking, like it was trying to shake off a bug, except Ollie was inside. All the same, though, Ollie did lose his grip. He fell. It was a long fall, but thankfully, it was at an angle. So Ollie fell from hanging onto the back side of the inside of the monster to hanging onto the front side near the bottom. He'd caught himself, but he's got some stretch and some squish, so he was okay. I didn't quite know what was going on with this thing. There weren't a whole lot of clues inside. But all I noticed that it did seem very papery. So he tried just punching. It didn't really have fists. If it's paper, maybe I can get through and get out of here. The monster didn't seem to like it, but there wasn't much the monster could do to stop him. And he sort of worked his way through, kind of down by the number 6. Well, he couldn't see where he was digging through, but eventually he got a little hole big enough for him to slip through, and he darted out and jumped right into the water. Now the thing was reaching down with his arms toward the little hole, trying to figure out what was going on. But Ollie was already in the water. Quick as you can imagine, Ollie made it back to the command center. And I said, "Ollie, what happened? You made it mad." I said, "Yeah, I don't know what I said any different than what you said, but yeah, it's mad now. Has it destroyed anything else while I was inside?" "You were inside of it?" Yeah, it's weird inside. Yeah, it did destroy some cars. It did some damage to one of the parking lots. Like, nothing major yet, but it's agitated now, that's for sure. Well, I've got some information. I've got a sample." Well, I pulled up one of his arms, and inside was just a wad of the material that he'd torn through. That I don't quite know how it works, but it seems to be just made of this papery material. Has anybody got a lighter? And one of the police officers there pulled out a lighter. So I lit it up, and indeed the material burned just like paper. Said, "I think that's the way out. I think you got to set it on fire. I think it'll go up. That bell mechanism on top is mechanical, so that's going to fall. But if the whole thing goes up like that, well, it's risky," the mayor said. "I don't like setting fire to big, huge, tall things, but if you think it's the best way, I think it might be a good way. All right. Chief, you got some flare guns?" "Yeah, we got flare guns." "Fire flare guns at that thing." So several police officers ran over and they fired their flare guns, which are sort of like big firework guns. They went streaming across the water. The monster saw them and tried to dodge, but it was too big and too slow. And the flares hit it right in the clock face. The first one just kind of bounced off, but the second one stuck and caught and started to burn, and the third one and the fourth one was caught and stuck, and the fifth one bounced off and landed on the submarine, but that was okay. It went out in just a second. But the monster started to burn, and it did go up quickly. The whole time, it never stopped smiling, but it did laser eye a few more things. Destroyed some boats, made a big old burny gash in the middle of Pratt Street. But, quick as you can imagine, over the course of maybe 2 minutes, the whole thing went up. It was like paper mache, but without even having a wire frame inside. It's about a minute and a half in to the burning, which was a crazy sight to see. This giant burning paper mache thing, the metal mechanism at the top, came crashing through and crashing down to the ground with a horrible cacophony of bells and springs. And a minute or two later, it was just a broken mechanism and some ash. Ollie and the officers went over to check it out. They didn't find anything in the bell mechanism that could have made it move. But one of the officers was poking through some of the ashes, kind of near one of the feet had been, when one of the feet had been, and came up with a glowing purple gem. I said, "This looks like magic. This looks like enchantment." Well, I grabbed a paper bag from the trash and put the gem in the paper bag. Just as all I suspected, the paper bag came to life and grew little arms. Started waving about angrily. "All right," well, I said, "I don't know quite what to do with this, but I know who to call." The mayor said, "All right, so you can take this thing and dispose of it somehow properly?" I said, "If anybody can, I can." "Well, Ollie, we owe you. Once again, glad to have you in our city." And I said, "You know what? I'm glad to be here." And that was the case of Ollie and the giant clock.